As I begin all calls, I begin it with a short prayer. Lord, I thank you for all your blessings and everything you've given us, and the ability to come together using this amazing technology and to work together and to grow together and learn from one another. And we also appreciate the opportunity to learn more about who we are and the authority and power you've given us. And so, Lord, I just want to thank you for that. Amen. Now, our disclaimer. This call is for the private members only. It's recorded only for the members of yourlaw.org. This conversation is merely an information share as conducted as free speech and with the self-study of contracts, due process, jurisdiction, and so forth as they relate to various law situations. Nothing discussed is to be considered conclusive legal, tax, or accounting advice. The content is copyrighted under common law, and we're not attorneys or accountants. We're not interested in debates with them. We're merely having a private community discussion. We're all students. We do not protest the government or its agencies. All that we want, better, honest, more efficient government, of course, which respects the rule of law. In fact, we encourage peaceful and proper interaction between government, corporations, and the people whom the government serves. We also state for the record, we encourage anyone who owes a verified bill or debt or an obligation to file a form or anything like that, or any verified contract obligation, to keep your commitments. We're not telling you not to pay your bills here, but we are asking you to learn how to ask and know who you are and know how to ask people to verify a bill if it's made against you or verify a claim made against you. Nothing wrong with you asking questions. So we want you to learn how to say, prove it, and then know how to back that up based upon your standing and who you are. You'll be surprised how often they can't prove it lawfully. Now, the listener agrees that the host, guests, and speakers are not liable and are to be held harmless for outcomes resulting from individual actions taken as a result of information heard on this call or recording, or from the mentioned websites or resources, or from the individual follow-up discussions. By continuing on this call, you agree to these terms. Email questions during the call to support@urlaw.org. Now, if you're online on our Talkshoe window, there's a place where you can click on Facebook, Twitter, or and Google, and share that information. Also, all over our website, we have those share links. Be sure you're sharing this if you think what we're telling you is good information. Let's get the word out if we've got good information for you, if you agree. Now, later in the call, I'm going to spend a lot of time interviewing our guest tonight, but I just wanted to, so let me answer some of those questions. And then, of course, we will have our usual Thursday call tomorrow for individual questions on matters you might be dealing with that we're currently ongoing and assisting you with. But again, during the call, you'll press *8 when we get to the Q&A portion later, if we have some time. We may not have as much time with this call tonight. Now, as you know, let's see, a couple of quick announcements, and we're going to get going here. Right now, I'm going to withdraw holding the Tuesday Q&A calls, but I'm still going to hold the Thursday calls, so we're still going to have access there. Just have some scheduling conflicts working. We may even have a change in schedule of this call in the near future, so just be aware of that. Now, on those Q&A calls on Thursday, we can also do maybe some scenario discussions, role-playing and so forth. So be sure you get on those calls if you want to hear that. Now, let's, of course, remember, guys, we're all running a ministry here. We always appreciate donations for the word and the work and time we're putting out there. Now, if you have individual questions about your situation, about what's going on in your life, you need a little bit of help from what we're doing, please email that, and we'll discuss what options are available to you. So, without any further delay, I'm going to bring on our guest tonight. Let's got to find him in the queue there. And let me do a quick introduction. A few months back, I came across GlennWinningham, House of Fern. Now, Glenn, we just call him. I think what he talks about is brilliant. I think what he's going to talk to you about tonight is powerful, and I hope you're ready to take some notes. He's going to give out his websites, of course, so be ready to take it down. He's got a lot of information, so I hope you got pen and pad ready. I did put some of this information in the final reminder email that went out to everyone. So if you didn't get that, I can always put it up on our Yahoo group and also on our website. But be sure to write it down. So he's going to give you his contact information. Glenn will do that. And he'll talk about his YouTube channels and his Google groups and Yahoo groups and his Sovereignty International, I wrote down the website, Sovereignty International Living.info website. And so let me just pull Glenn up here, and Let's see if I got you unmuted. Do I have you, Glenn?
Yes, you do.
Wow, it works. It's magic again. All right.
It's an
well,
amazing thing.
It is. Sometimes, I have to work this technology, and I'm actually pretty good with technology, but sometimes I have a love-hate relationship with it. So,
well, just about the time you're expecting it to work like you want it to is when it decides to have a glitch, right?
Exactly. And it does it on its own. It's kind of like, when you go to the mechanic and you say, hey, my car is making this sound, and when you get to the mechanic, it doesn't make the sound anymore. You ever had that?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, I started off the call and had myself muted, so fortunately I caught up a little bit. So I was going fast. I wanted to get right to you. So Glenn, thanks again, first of all, for giving us the opportunity to have you on here tonight. It's really a pleasure and an honor. I've had the opportunity to listen and see a lot of your material and see what you're out there doing and talking about. And I just thought, this is something that our audience, based upon the things that we're studying and looking at, should get knowledgeable about. So I wanted to bring you here. So again, I thank you for taking the time. Can you give us let's just start off, I guess, so for those who don't know who you are, they all should know who they are, but tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into learning what you're talking to people about these days.
Well, actually, I've been dealing with law and regulations all my life. I work in aviation. I do aerospace engineering consulting. And I started working on airplanes in 1976. And so I've been working on them for a long time. I started out as a mechanic, basically, and just worked my way up. Anyways, in the late 80s, early 90s, this guy was living in southern Utah, and this guy comes up to me and starts talking to me about these two classes of citizens. And I said, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. And he brought up these court cases, and I thought, if this is true, this is just the most fantastic thing there is. And so I had to start looking into it, and then the more I looked into it, the more I found out he's 100% correct. And the more I found out that, like the movie The Matrix, everything's an illusion. Things are not what they appear. So,
boy, that's the truth. That's how my journey kind of went, too. When I heard that two class of citizen bit, I thought, this is crazy. And then I sat down and watched the Matrix, and I saw a whole new movie I'd never seen before. So it was pretty amazing to actually see it come to life in that form, and then start to discover all the things we've discovered.
Yeah.
So what prompted you? I mean, as you got started, what did you begin to find? What were you discovering?
Well, I started, I worked, aerospace engineering in contracts. I've done contracts most of my life. I've had very few direct jobs. The longest job I had in my life was for 5 years, and that was for U.S. Airways. And anyways, so most of my jobs were short-term jobs, contracts, and I spent a lot of time traveling. And everywhere, it's amazing, everywhere I went, I would talk to people about this stuff. And there was always someone that had some information about it. And so I collected court cases. I ran into people who I met guys who did not have a Social Security number, who have never had one, who didn't have a driver's license, who had traveled on the highways. I met some people from, there's an organization in California that's been around for at least 20 years, 20, 30 years even maybe, called the State Citizen Service Center in California. I met some of the people from that organization. It's basically a guy by the name of, and I don't even know if he's still alive anymore, but he was a retired police officer by the name of Richard McDonald that set up that organization. And back in the 90s, I downloaded files off of their website. Before the internet was around, I mean, basically it was a BBS, so you would get on their website and download files. And I still have some of those files, and I use those files for court cases from time to time. So, the more I found out about it, about trusts, about asset protection, about, everything with the law, everything's an illusion. Things are not what they appear. And none of this stuff really applies to anybody. I guess some people might call me an anarchist, and I'm I take issue with that sometimes, but sometimes, people that want just common law, in a way, are. You know, they don't believe in no government. They just believe in constitutionally limiting government the way the Constitution or the Founding Fathers intended. And you know, they like to label people like that anarchists, which is really not true, because they do believe in some government. It's just limited government as defined by the original Constitution. And
do no harm. I mean, that's all we want. You know,
yeah, right.
That's the simple rule of law, is do no harm. That's it.
Right, yeah. Live and let live, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, everything I've done trusts. I did trusts. The first trust I did was in the early 1990s. A friend of mine, I had heard about them before. A friend of mine, you know, one of the guys that introduced me to this stuff had set up his own common law town. And he had courts, he had constable, he had everything, all the documents. And it was called Hope Sanctuary in Littlefield, Arizona. And he was one of my first people I contacted or ran into about this stuff, and he told me that some lawyer got a hold of all these documents, and he was selling common law towns to people for $10,000 a pop. Eh?
Wow. Yeah, I'm in the wrong business, huh?
I guess, eh?
Yeah. Wow. So, you know, folks who are on this call, they're always curious about learning how different people have applied their status and things like that. I've heard you talk a lot about, you know, the concept of sovereignty. Not in the, obviously we want to stay away from that term sovereign citizen. That seems to be the bad word of the day. But no, truly what a sovereign is an individual under the rights given to you by God. And can you give somebody basically a nutshell view of what that is?
Well, again, you know, it goes down to what the courts are saying. Okay, I mean, it's all in the court cases, and the courts have said that we, the people, the only power that's held by the government is power that's delegated. Okay. Delegated is the operative word, and it's a very important word, and it says that it's even a trust. So if you go into Title 28, United States Code, Section 3002, it says that United States is a federal corporation. And so what they're essentially saying, that if you're going to sue the government, you got to sue this corporation. Well, and this is one of the things I bring up in my lawsuits, is that there's no authority for this corporation. This corporation is an unconstitutional corporation, has unconstitutional delegation of authority. And the reason is that the courts have said that we, the people, delegated authority to a trust, right? There's lots of court cases that said that the government has been entrusted with certain delegated authority. And this is Supreme Court cases. And so the Constitution, if you think about it, is a trust indenture, okay? It's a contract. It's a trust indenture that's created by we the people to delegate certain authority to the government. Now, there's maxims of law that say that when you delegate something, that it cannot be redelegated, okay, unless there's specific authority to redelegate it. So when we people wrote that Constitution, it has certain things in there, and I am having trouble finding in there where it talks about Federal Bureau of Investigation or Central Intelligence Agency or Homeland Security or Internal Revenue Service or any of these, Department of the Treasury. I don't see Department of the Treasury in the Constitution. Maybe someone can point that out to me, because I'd really like to find it in there. Anyways, if it's not in there, then there's no authority for it. Now, that's not to say that they can't do it, because they obviously do, but the point is that they have no authority to come and talk to me, because I am the one that delegated that authority, and so therefore that is it's an unconstitutional delegation of authority, and for them to talk to me is ultra vires of their authority. In other words, if you look up the definition of the word ultra vires, it means that the corporation is gone outside the scope of its authority, and so they don't have authority to talk to me. They might have authority to talk to somebody, and that's between them and whoever they talk to. But they have no authority to talk to me. Does that answer your question?
It sure does. Now, I just want to clarify for the audience, when you say not talk to me versus someone else, what are you trying to get at there? What point are you trying to get across? What's the difference between me and something else?
Well, they can talk to a corporation, obviously.
Oh.
That's another thing is that the courts have ruled. There's a McCullough versus Maryland that's like the early 1800s, and it says that the only authority the government has is over things that they create. And so if they create a corporation, then yes, they have authority over that. And they can go and regulate it, they can tax it, they can do whatever they want with it. But and the case even says that it's self-evident. In other words, it's obvious that this is the case, okay? So they have authority over stuff that they create, but they didn't create me, okay? My mother created me, and I delegated authority to them. So for them to think that they can come and talk to me is a breach of trust, quite frankly, because they're supposed to be a trust, and they breach that trust by coming and talking to me. And again, if you don't complain about it, nothing's ever going to change. And so I always file criminal complaints against them, and and they kind of leave me alone. So far, they have, anyways.
That's a good thing, because the key is knowing who you are, as you say. I've heard you say probably 1,000 times. It's knowing who you are, and a lot of people don't.
You are.
And a lot of people don't. That's the problem. Is they just don't. It's kind of like the slaves that wouldn't run. They were born into slavery and they didn't know the difference. And the ones that were brought over would run. And so what we're getting at, ladies and gentlemen, is that's you're brought into a world where you're given a number. You're given a little, stamped on the forehead with that number that you carry around with you, and you presume that represents you, and you respond to it, and you react to it, and when they call your name, you respond to it because you were taught to do so in the public schools. Say your name, stand up, say I pledge allegiance to the government, and all those kinds of things. So it becomes very difficult for most people, to get out of that train of thought that, wait, I have rights as a man, and even though they're calling me these names that they give you, which they presume to mean that you're a corporation, this is where a lot of the problems are created for people. Is that not?
Absolutely. It's we're all products of the government's educational system, and if I hadn't worked all my life with the law and knowing how the law works, I might have had some difficulty with that, and even then, it takes time for it to sink in. When I first learned about this, was in the early 90s. It was like 91, 92, and yet I really never started. I was always careful what I was doing, and I was learning more and more as I went, but I really never really started asserting myself until like 2005. And so it was like 15 years before I really started asserting myself. And again, you have to, it's like the scriptures say, line upon line, precept upon precept. You have to get your head around it. It's not something you just wake up and say, oh, I'm sovereign. I never knew that. I'm sovereign today. I think I'm going to be sovereign today. It's not how that works. It's something that just distills upon you. It's something that you grow into. That's something that, it's a way of life. It really is. And so you can't just expect yourself to wake up and say, oh, well, I guess I'm the king today. And it doesn't just work that way because you've been indoctrinated and had all this stuff drilled into your head for so long that you have to overcome that. And that's not an easy thing to do.
It's not. I mean, I've been to that transition myself over the years, and I know others that have. You might have that wake-up moment, but even then it's still hard to hold on to because it's so easy to get drawn in to these situations. We talk a little bit about courtroom scenarios where they come in and they send you a piece of paper and you march right in there and they ask your name and you proudly respond to that piece of paper as if it's you. And boy, that's when the trouble begins. You're already beginning into a contract with these people, and you don't even realize what's going on. And so I found that you have a unique way to address these things before you get into that situation. Because from what all I've been able to learn is that a true man, a living being, really can't appear in their courts if they retain that status. But if you assume the status they give you, well, then they can do whatever they want. Because corporations don't have rights, and if they treat you as such, you're in a real dangerous and vulnerable position. So you've talked a lot about having a lot of cases and suits and things like that. Do you have any stories that you could share about what kind of scenarios you faced and how you dealt with that?
I guess I could talk about a thing that happened to me in Arizona. The bankster thieves were stealing my house. And I paid it off with a promissory note, which is as good as their promissory notes, but probably better. But so what happened is that they went ahead and foreclosed on the thing, and so I went to the auction, and because I witnessed the auctioneer commit a felony, so I arrested the auctioneer. And so anyways, part of that procedure is you're supposed to call the cops, and the cops are supposed to come and take custody of the felon. So when the cops got there, they started building a case against me and the two people that I brought with me as witnesses. And so I saw that going on right away, and so I started building a case against them. Okay, so my procedure is the same procedure no matter what, and what my procedure is you have to understand, first of all, is that everything's under martial law, and under martial law, everything works on presumption. They presume certain things until you defeat them. And so my notice and demands are basically full of estoppel certificates. If you look that up in a law dictionary, see what it is. It's to put them into estoppel regarding certain issues, take away their presumptions. So what I did was I served all the judges notice and demands. I served the prosecutor notice and demands, and the cops, served them all notice and demands designed to take away their presumptions. So then they sent a summons to the straw man, and so then I attached the summons to a criminal complaint along with the notice and demands, and I filed it in the county recorder's office, and then I sent them a copy. And we're accused of treason and sedition and perjury of oath and, all that stuff. And so then I never show up, or at least not easily and voluntarily, that's for sure. Anyways, so I didn't show up for that. And so then they issued, actually I did appear because I appeared on the paper. When I sent them the notice and demand and the criminal complaint, that was an appearance. But it wasn't what they were looking for, and they're a bunch of thieves and pirates, and so they went ahead and issued a warrant. And the reason I know the warrant was issued is because I called up the court, and the court told me the warrant was issued. So I knew something was going down. I was working at U.S. Airways at this time, so I was preparing a lawsuit. I had done a few, 2 or 3, or maybe, about 3 up till then. And so I knew what to do. I was preparing a lawsuit, and I was going into work, and it was Memorial Day weekend, Friday before Memorial Day weekend, and I left for lunch, came back for lunch, and my coworkers told me there's this big guy here looking for you, and I figured, well, it's been about a month, and so it's probably about right. They're probably, coming to get me. And so anyways, I left work early that day, and I was driving out of the parking lot, and there was a guy with a yellow van that was all caged in inside that was driving into the parking lot as I was leaving. So the significant thing of this is as powerful. This shows how powerful these notice and demands are, because what I'd done is I had served the chief of police, the county sheriff, the chief judge, and the chief prosecutor in every city and town around there one of my notice and demands. And this warrant was coming from this town of Florence, which is the Pinal County seat, and in Arizona. and this warrant is coming from this town of Florence. Well, so the point I'm trying to make is that I had served all of these officials with one of my notice in advance, and none of them would touch that thing with a 10-foot pole. They had to send a bounty hunter to come and get me. So that's how powerful they are. I'm telling you, this stuff works. Anyways, so what happened was, obviously he missed me. So I went home. It was Memorial Day weekend. I never, ever... I always use a private mailbox, let me put it that way. I never, ever put where I live on anything, and so they didn't know where to find me. They had to come to my work. That was the only place they could find me. And so I went home, and I finished up my lawsuit. Monday was a holiday. Tuesday, I filed it. I got a case number, and then I sent a registered letter to the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court of Arizona, and I told her all the stuff that had been going on. I said, you got a criminal racketeering enterprise operating in the town of Florence. And I said, I hereby demand that you quash, they've issued this warrant for the rest of the strawman vessel, and I hereby demand that you quash this warrant for the arrest of the strawman vessel. I said, quote, because we all know that the corporate commercial agents, the police in brackets, are too stupid to tell the difference between a sovereign living soul and a straw man vessel, unquote. And I said, furthermore, Chief Judge, I filed this lawsuit. This is the case number. You're named in it. And if you fail to quash the warrant for the arrest of the straw man vessel, it will be further proof of your dereliction of duty to regulate your subordinates. Well, so this was on a Tuesday when I filed the lawsuit, and I prepared this document and served it on her, so she probably got it on Thursday or Friday. So then Monday, I went back to work, and nobody bothered me. And I did sue the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court. I sued the Attorney General. Any lawsuits like throwing mud against the wall, so you just sue everybody. Sue some clerk, anybody you got a name for. Anyways, so I just, I don't know, there was probably, 8 or 10 people that were named in this lawsuit, Pinal County Sheriff. Anyway, so what happened was Arizona, an assistant attorney general, the Arizona attorney general was sued, so assistant attorney general responded in the lawsuit for the Arizona attorney general and the chief judge of the Supreme Court, and they basically said in the first filing, they said that it was perfectly appropriate that I petition the chief judge to get the warrant quashed. Now, I can tell you that she didn't quash the warrant, but I think that she did issue an order or something like that, basically saying that don't be going after any living souls or something like that, I'm guessing. I don't know what she did, quite frankly, but I know the warrant was out there because I got in a car accident 2 years later, and some lady made an illegal left turn in Casa Grande, which was 20 miles from Florence, right? And she broadsided me, and I was towing a U-Haul trailer and caused a bunch of damage, totaled up her car, I'm sure, and caused a bunch of damage to my truck and this trailer. And so the cops came, obviously, and it was the Pinal County Sheriff's Office that came, right? So we're in Pinal County. Florence is the county seat for Pinal County, and the Pinal County Sheriff comes to this car accident that I'm in. Well, they pulled up the warrant, right? And I remember listening to them. It was on their radio, and they were talking about this warrant, and then it said, but we don't want to extradite. And I was confused about that, because why would they have to extradite from Pinal County to the town of Florence? You know what I mean? I mean, the county sheriff's office is probably 2 blocks away from the city hall. Anyways, wow. So they made all sorts of threats at that time. They didn't arrest me, and I drove away. Anyways, so what happened eventually was that, another thing I did was, this is the first time I filed a criminal complaint, is this in my lawsuit, I told them I'm not one of your plaintiffs, because a plaintiff's a person. I'm a petitioner, and I just went through and said who I am and who I'm not. And I said, if you try and accuse me of being one of these things, then it's going to be proof of your sedition and perjury of oath and stuff like that. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so what happened was, in that first document that Assistant Attorney General filed, they accused me of being a plaintiff. So I immediately made up a criminal complaint, and I took it down and filed it in the county recorder's office, and then I filed it, and I filed it into the case. And the very next document that Assistant Attorney General filed into that case, she said, I've been transferred to another department. Somebody else has taken over this case. I'm telling you, the stuff is powerful. You got to do it right. You got to build a case, but it works.
You've heard you mention a couple of things that you sort of referenced. You talked about your notice of demand, and I've seen some of your material and so forth, and I noticed you sort of have what I call a short notice demand, and then there's a rather long version. How are those kind of used in your process when you're putting those together?
Well, they started out short and went long. It probably doesn't need to be so long.
Both. Yeah, okay.
No, I don't use them both. No, the older ones are short, and the more recent ones are long, and they probably don't need to be so long. Matter of fact, I'm going to start thinning them down because, when the judge is dealing with a statute, there's court cases that talk about this. They're not a judge; they're a clerk, and they're working for the prosecutor. And there's court cases that talk about this stuff, and they don't have any immunity. They're personally liable. And if they issue a warrant, okay, well, think about it. There's court cases that say that if a clerk tries to do a judicial function, that it's a nullity, right? Well, think about that. So now you got the judge in there. He's walked away from being a judge to be a clerk, and then he's issued a warrant. Well, think about it. If he's a clerk doesn't have authority to issue a warrant. Only a judge has authority to issue a warrant. So that warrant is a nullity. And so that's the argument. And so that's what I put in my documents now, and I'm going to thin it down and just put that kind of stuff in there. You see what I'm saying? You don't have any authority. You're nothing but a bunch of pirates, et cetera, et cetera. Matter of fact, I've got some criminal complaints. I'm making them a lot smaller now, too. And just because they cut to the chase more, I don't have to beat them up so much. I just cut to the chase. The court cases say it.
Exactly. Well, I like to see those new revisions when we get a chance to review those with you.
Sure.
Yeah, because I've got some of the longer stuff, and I was like, yeah, I thought so as well, that there must be a shorter method for getting that stuff in, because we got to fire a few things off. It gets to be a lot of paperwork. So, but you're good at it, and no question about it. So anyway, I look forward to seeing that. So the bottom line is this. I mean, if you're going to use paper, I tell people this all the time, if you're going to use paperwork, you better know what it says and where you're going with it, because people look for magic remedy paperwork all the time, and man, there's never been a document I've ever sent to anybody on anything that I did significantly put my handprint on, because I want to make sure it was mine. And so I know I'm going to get emails from people saying, send me those papers. And I'm going to say, you got to go over to Glenn. That's his deal. In fact, while we're at it, let's take a brief moment here. I want to give your identification information out and contact details out for those who want to write it down. Again, it was in the welcome email I sent out prior to the call. If you still don't have it, though, send something to support, and we'll get you the appropriate links for Glenn, how to reach him, and learn more about his information. Glenn, would you like to give out your websites and your groups and that kind of information?
Yeah, sure. My website is www.sovereigntyinternational.info. That's all one word, and it's sovereigntyinternational.info. And that website, I haven't really done much with it, for a few years, so it probably needs to be updated. But it covers, pretty well everything that needs to be covered. I've got some private groups, both at Yahoo and at Google, and they're both called Administrating Your Public Servants. So the Yahoo one is probably the best because they have a good files directory, and you can upload. There's a bunch of files that are there. There are documents that I've done, and there's also a links directory. So what I did was, Yahoo doesn't allow you to upload files that are over a certain size, but Google allows you. They don't care about the size as long as you're allowed like 5 gigs or something like that at Google. And so I've got a bunch of stuff at Google. So I put links to those Google documents in the Yahoo links directory, and plus there's links to YouTube videos. I've also got a YouTube profile. It's called Sovereign Living, all one word, and so you can go to YouTube and do a search for my profile, and I've uploaded. There's like about 150 videos, and they go through the law. There's a bunch of private information shares, and then there's some more recent ones that I've uploaded that explain like land titles and that kind of stuff. So and my email address is engineerwin@gmail.com. So that's the word engineer followed by win, W-I-N, all one word, @gmail.com. So if anybody wants to contact me, they're welcome to contact me there, or they can join the groups. The groups are private, so if you want to see anything that's going on there, you got to join. And the Facebook profile is not the Facebook. The YouTube profile is, a YouTube profile like any other. But if anybody wants to contact me, you're welcome to contact me.
Yeah, the YouTube is it's Sovereign Living. I think that's what they would type in the YouTube search engine to find it. And I'd suggest you guys, when you get there, just click that subscribe link. I originally, that's actually how I came across some of Glenn's information. Watched a few of his videos where he goes into some detail. And I think that's a good starting point. And of course, you have the other links and things. Glenn, if you're talking to somebody who's really kind of new in this, maybe they're dealing with a challenge, some sort of an issue that's going on, they've got to address, some debt collector or agency issue or legal issue, what would you kind of suggest to them in terms of where they would start to learn more?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. What I do, if someone joins my Yahoo group, I don't have this on the Google group, but it's only because I don't have the capability of doing it. On Yahoo, I can have a file sent to people that join the group, and I tell them before they want to make any comments that they have to watch at least one private information share on my YouTube profile, and that's pretty well it. Just watch one of my, they have to get a basic understanding of what it is that I'm telling people, because I can't tell you how many times people come on my group and they have all these questions, and they're basic fundamental questions that if they watch my videos, they would have the answer to that already, and then they can answer questions that other people on the group would be interested in hearing, and that would help everybody. As far as people that are new, where they can go, I would say, go to my group, but it's gonna take. There's a learning curve. You can't just expect to learn this stuff overnight. It was. I told the first guy that told me about this, he was crazy, and it took me years before I started really getting my head around it. And so the important thing to understand, so what I would say is go to my group, but it's a learning experience. And there's one of the things that I would say is there's different procedures out there. My procedure is strictly common law, and I try and stay away. I consider law merchant to be satanic. Matter of fact, I know it's satanic, and so I want nothing to do with it. I think they're a bunch of thieves, but there are people out there who have learned how to deal with it, with the thieves. Now, one of the big problems I have with that is that, as with thieves, when you're dealing with thieves, some of them are more honest than others, so sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't, and so the results are not very consistent. And so that's one of my bones of contention with all of that, but my biggest bone of contention is that it's just satanic. And there's a guy by the name of Mark Passio that's got some YouTube videos about natural law. He's a former Satanist priest, and he goes through and explains, all about Satanism, and you need to understand that, because you need to know that's exactly what's going on, okay? It is about Satanism, and you need to understand what Satanism is, and to know, because most Americans are Satanists, quite frankly, and they don't even know it. But, when it comes to Judgment Day and standing before God, if you're a Satanist, you're a Satanist. And I don't think you're going to get much sympathy from God, even if you don't know you are. That's because of your own ignorance. And Mark Passio is a great guy because he talks about ignorance, because he had to take Latin in high school, so he goes down into the derivative of these words, and he's really good. He kind of rails on people a lot, but I think it's well deserved, and because he'll say ignorance. Listen to the word ignorance. Okay. Matter of fact, he even repronounces it. He calls it ignorance. It's not because you don't have the information in front of you. It's because you're ignoring the information. And he rails on them about it. And he's 100% right. And so
if you study their Bible, they'll learn very early in the process that it's the ignoring, it's the denial of its very existence that is the biggest sin. That starts you down the wrong path right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so I would say that you have to be easy on yourself and learn it, as you can, and take it one step at a time. And I would say, my YouTube videos are free. Watch them. If you don't have the ability to download them, you can order a set. You can send me an email. I got price lists. You can order all my YouTube videos and my files and everything you need basically on DVDs, and it's not very expensive. So you can do that if you want, or you can get 99%, or I won't say 99%, but you can probably get about 90% or maybe 80% at least for free off of YouTube and off of the Yahoo group in the file section. You can get almost everything. Well, you can get everything you need off of those. If you want me to help you, then my attitude is that I'm really not into babysitting, and so if you want me to help you, then I need some money, and because I don't work for nothing, and it's all there for you for free. That's part of the learning process. When you get in there and you start learning it, that's part of the learning process, is to get in there and learn it and make your mistakes. If you want me to babysit, then I need some compensation. It's there for free for anybody that wants it.
Okay, very good. Any other points you wanted to hit on tonight?
I also talk about asset protection. Now, asset protection is important. I've got a YouTube video about asset protection. It's important not only for if you have property, okay? A lot of people use it, and one of the people that I've been setting up trusts for since the early 90s. Now, they haven't always been very good trusts, but they were certainly trusts. But and for about the last, since early 2000s, actually, I've been in touch with some people who do very good trusts. And so I have actually been a manager of a trust that is a very good trust. If they're done right, they're extremely powerful. The people that that helped me with this told me that they had seen a trust that was set up by William Penn that's still operating today. Do you know who William Penn was?
Offhand, the name is so familiar, but I'm not sure if I can recall who that was.
Okay, well, William Penn was the guy that was granted Pennsylvania by the King of England.
Lucky guy.
And yeah. He was granted that whole state by the King of England, and so obviously, like it was about the 1600s or something. But so the point is these trusts have been used by the power people for centuries, if not thousands of years, and if it's done properly, it's extremely powerful, and that's a good example of one that is still operating today. Now, so I would encourage you to watch the video, and it's not just about assets. It's also about privacy, because you can effectively disappear if you use structures properly. There's one of the things I show people is it's a Yahoo article about this guy that was a convicted murderer. Now, I'm not saying going out and get convicted of murder, but what I am saying is this was someone that they were really wanting to find. And he was a convicted murderer who had got out of jail on parole and up and disappeared. And he up and disappeared for 30 years. And the whole time that he was right in front of their nose operating a rehab facility using trusts. And so this is the power, okay, is that if you know how to do these properly, you can effectively disappear. Matter of fact, when they found him, it was an accident. It was completely an accident. And so the point is that if you use these structures properly, it can be a major privacy thing where it becomes very powerful for a whole bunch of reasons, not just property. Of course, this guy happened to have some property, and really, I mean, I manage some trusts and some other structures, but I have to say I don't own anything, but I do get the use of a truck and a travel trailer and a few things like that, and some land, and But at any rate, so again, it's very liberating to make it so that if somebody does want to attack you, that there's nothing for them to take. And that's the biggest thing that happens nowadays is people come to me and they tell me that, somebody cleaned out their bank account or somebody stole their house or, any number of things. Yeah. And none of that has to happen, but you have to, all of my procedures are preemptive, okay? In other words, you have to, the more further in advance that you're doing this stuff, the more powerful it is. If you're under attack, well, it's not going to be as powerful. It's, there's a thing called fraudulent conveyance, and that's going to be one of the issues that'll come up, and so if you're under attack, it'll probably still help you, but it's not going to be near as effective as that's right, if you did it in advance. So as with anything that I do, It's all preemptive. You have to be proactive. You have to know the law. You have to understand what's happening and take steps to protect yourself. And if you do it properly, you are literally the king or the queen, literally. And there's court cases to talk about it. You have all the rights of the king.
Yeah, I would stress to people, when you talk about asset protection, it is not for the purposes of evading a tax or hiding something from somebody that they're not lawfully entitled to or anything like that. It's just about good management of your affairs and your right to just be left alone. And that's really all we're trying to help accomplish here.
Absolutely, yeah. Matter of fact, if you really do owe something, then you better pay it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's always the question, isn't it?
That's the question. What is you and what is it? That's the other questions you got to understand.
Well, I took the IRS to the Supreme Court twice,
Oh, you did?
Yeah, go to the Supreme Court's website and search my name. You'll see it there 3 times, actually, 3, maybe 4. And,
really?
Yeah, they don't want to talk to me now, and I kind of like it that way.
Right on. Well, that's good. I mean, again, if they had a right to, they could, and that's what it gets down to. So,
well, again, the government only has authority over things that they create, and they didn't create me. And my argument was, in the beginning, I said in the lower courts, I said, where's the contract? This is slave labor is what this is, so where's the contract? Where did I consent to your slave labor? You're forcing me to work for nothing to pay this tax. So where's the contract? And so in the lower courts, they never would answer that. So then by the time it got to the Supreme Court, what happened is I said, there is no contract. They're a bunch of thieves and et cetera, et cetera. And so the U.S. Department of so-called Justice, which is what I called them in the case, waived their right to respond. First of all, you have to understand how it works, okay? Because I filed a lawsuit, and I filed a petition to proceed without the payment of taxes, because filing fees and excise tax is what it is. And so I filed a petition to proceed without the payment of tax, and I used all the same arguments that I did in the actual case. Is really it was. I'm not a corporation. When you're dealing with the IRS, if it's one tax, a tax is a tax is a tax. If you're liable to pay the tax, then you're their slave. And if you're not, then go away and leave me alone. And whether it's an excise tax or an income tax, by the way, is an excise tax too, by the way. Anyway, so what happened is I used all the same arguments in the petition as I did in the motion to proceed without, or it was actually, I call it a demand to proceed without the payment of taxes. And the court accepted the case, they docketed the case, and they sent me a letter saying the case has been docketed and send this out to the respondents and they can respond. Now, in the rules, it says that they don't have to accept any case. I told them that you have no right to turn this case away because I'm one of the people. And so they did accept the case, and there was no filing fee, or I should say filing tax. So then what happened is, well, the U.S. Department of so-called Justice saw the writing on the wall. They knew that as soon as that case got accepted, that I had won, really. If you think about it, I did. Mm-hmm. And so they waived their right to respond. In other words, they admitted everything. When they waive their right to respond in any court case, if you don't dispute an allegation, then you admit it as the truth. And they waived the right to respond, and that admitted everything. And so then the court had no choice but to dismiss the case because there was no more any controversy. The Department of so-called Justice says, yeah, okay, so what? We know about that. And so that admitted everything. There was no longer a controversy. The Constitution says that the Supreme Court has to have a controversy. So, they dismissed the case. That's what happened. And that happened every time I went to the Supreme Court. And, So I won every case, but it's kind of a hollow victory because, they don't. I don't have some. I mean, I understand the law, so I know I won. But and they don't want to talk to me. I don't. With the IRS, they don't ask, I don't tell. It's a don't ask, don't tell situation, and they don't want to talk to me, and I kind of like it that way. But the bottom line is that I don't have some $10 million in the bank because they stole my money, and I wound up having to leave U.S. Airways. I was U.S. Airways at the time. That's the longest job I had in my life, and I had to leave because of these thieves. So, anyways, but so what I do now is with the use of structures, I've worked on classified military programs. I helped design the hydraulic system on the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter because by the use of structures, and I was in a position where there was no taxes being paid and nothing was ever paid, and nobody ever asked.
Well, I guess that's what's called establishing who you are, on the record.
That's right.
Right on. Well, that's good stuff. Listen, I know we're running a little bit over our hour, but I wanted to just give you that last chance to get that word in. So you want to give out your contact links just one more time for those listening?
Sure.
Your website and.
Sure, it's Sovereignty International, www.sovereigntyinternational.info, and my groups at Yahoo and Google are both called Administrating Your Public Servants. Those are separate words, Administrating Your Public Servants. My email address is engineerwin@gmail.com, which is the word engineer followed by the word win, all one word, at gmail.com. And you can contact me there or on the groups. And my YouTube profile is Sovereign Living.
Easy enough. That's
Did we go over
like
the hour?
A lot of people. Oh, we did, but that's okay. We don't have a TV timeout or anything like that, so we're okay. I kind of pushed it over because I was starting late with my little silence at the first there. Well, listen, Glenn, thanks a lot. I hope maybe we can have you back again sometime. I've enjoyed the discussion. It's great information, and you're somebody who walks the walk, and I just like people to see that there are people out there that can give them hope that they can come back to reality, and the reality is who you are. You really are a man and a woman, not something, and you just have to start living that way and treating it that way, and you can walk more freely just by the simple understanding of who you are. You don't have to, I've heard you talk about licenses and addresses and all those things that people think cause them to suddenly fall into some statutory rule, but I think the key is always coming right back to remembering, no matter what all those things are, you don't have those things anyway. They belong to somebody else. You can only use them. And because as a man, you really can't really touch those things. But sometimes you have to use the things in the two-dimensional world, we all admit. But it's great that you understand how to navigate in and out of that when necessary and always remembering who you are. So, Glenn, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. And everybody else, I thank you for being here as well. I will be on our Q&A call Thursday for our members, just for situations we're discussing with them. And like I said, Glenn, I hope sometime we'll be able to get you back as well. I appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that I'm able to help some people because that's basically what my soul. I think I was born for this, not because of anything I'm doing. It's more because there's a lot of people out there that are so clueless about what's going on.
Yeah, there really are. I mean, it's a waking up process. I really think there is an awakening happening, but it's a lot of people to wake up. So fortunately, we have the resources and tools to get the word out and get more people talking about this. And that's also I think is one of my missions is to just to be out there and to help people wake up and understand who they are and where they stand. And
that's right.
I think that's the best gift we can give back to the world here, Glenn.